Well, my name is Audrey Kerger, and I really appreciate all of you taking a little bit of time out of your day to join us. I really wanted to say thank you to John for inviting me here to just share some of my knowledge with you. That's really what is my passion. First and foremost is education, and then after that, helping people on a one-on-one individual basis to find the health and wellness that they're looking for or get into the industry itself. I'm not going to talk about how I found cannabis till the end, because there's so many things about this plant that I have now discovered over the 5 years that I've really dug into the industry, that I feel are so much more important than even just my story. Cannabis, also known as hemp, which little to most people's knowledge, they just automatically think what we now call is marijuana. Marijuana is kind of like the baby of hemp. And so when we look at this plant, we automatically think getting high. This plant has so many more uses, as you can see here with this slide. There's over 50,000 uses of this plant that we have discovered as of today. So thinking about the medicinal side of it, that's just one. So we've got a lot of catching up to do, because we are pretty far back in what we've done to ourselves by the choices that our ancestors made. So let's go over just a little bit of the history of hemp, because I think that this will allow you to see this plant in a lot larger light. It has actually been discovered a 9,000-year-old blanket. Now, they were doing some digging in the Turkey area, and they found a baby that was swaddled. And so they were doing some tests on this baby that was swaddled, and they found out that the swaddle was actually made from hemp. So first and foremost, why aren't all of our clothes being made from a plant, and why are they being made from petroleum? When we know petroleum is a killer to us and our planet and all of the animals on this planet as well. The oldest known records of hemp farming go all the way back to China over 5,000 years ago, which you can do a lot of reading on the different dynasties that utilize this plant and how they found success with it. Also, all of our European ancestors came over to the Americas bringing hemp with them. So they had their hemp seed, and they utilized it both for food as well as for livestock feed. And they also made clothing with it as well. So our ancestors were actually much further educated in this plant than I think we currently are today. It is a staple crop in American agriculture. All of our forefathers have quotes about hemp and how important it is to the growth of America. Also, the Declaration of Independence was drafted on hemp, and I actually have a hemp little Declaration of Independence in my bag that I forgot to take out, which is super cute, and it was distributed on hemp paper. I will say this, the one that is sitting in the museum is actually on animal skin treated with lime. It is considered a parchment, but what was distributed to the people was hemp paper. And as late as the 1930s, medicinal hemp tinctures, topical products, and all different types of cannabis was being used to help those who needed different remedies for different medical issues that they were suffering with. And I'm going to go further into that a little bit later. So what I wanted to go up through next is how we got to where we are. These are a few of the men that helped us get to where we are today, but not all of them. In 1935, alcohol prohibition was ended, and the ATF was out of work. So these three men worked together to find something else to target. And at the time, there was a lot of Hispanics coming up through Mexico, and they had a lot of cannabis with them. And they actually were, this was very racist and very money driven. This was all about greed and racism, why this plant is where we are today. They wanted to make this plant disgusting to the Americans, and so they actually created the name marijuana by taking the two most popular Hispanic names, Mary and Juan, and putting them together. So you couldn't get more racist than that. For me personally, I don't even like to call the plant marijuana. I call it high THC cannabis or high CBD cannabis, and soon we'll be seeing some other cannabinoids, which that's what THC and CBD are, and I'll explain that further as well. But you'll start seeing that to be like high CBG content cannabis, or high THCV cannabis, or high Delta 8 cannabis, which Delta 8 THC doesn't get you intoxicated like Delta 9 THC does. But with these three gentlemen, yeah, so we just call it what the medical term is cannabis sativa, and then we also have cannabis indica, which we would find in the Indian region of the world. But Andrew Mellon, he was actually the head of the ATF, and he was working with DuPont. He was one of their primary investors, and we all know what DuPont does, plastics, paints, and many different things in that. And he was also working with Hoover as his Secretary of Treasury. And then William Randolph Hearst, who owned a part of DuPont Chemical Company, and also who owns, and still today, if you look up his name, owns over 300 different broadcasting companies. This family still rules our airwaves. So they are still in charge 100 years later on what you see. And the fact that they manipulated the newspapers, the magazines, the radios, and they created this huge cannabis chaos, Reefer Madness, I think some of you may have remembered that movie. That was all pushed by this man. And they're still pushing poison all over. There's no other country that runs the amount of ads for different medical applications. That's something that you should be going to see your practicing physician for, not your television and then going and asking your doctor. So we see that with also Henry Anslinger, which was the nephew of Andrew Mellon, they all just worked in cahoots to kind of put this plant in a really dark light. And once they were able to snuff it out, we've then progressed to where we are today. Now, this is the biggest thing for me. I love the medicinal side of this plant, but my passion has been pulled towards the industrial side of this plant. Why? Because of the slides we're about to go over. But most importantly, we know how poor our country is. I mean, on the way here, it's raining today in Phoenix, Arizona, which is not typical. But I saw about 15 homeless people, and I live in Scottsdale, standing all over the streets, driving down Shea Boulevard, even on the freeways as I was exiting Glendale Road to drive up here to 24th. Most of these people are veterans or have lost their job to some technological advancement. This plant would change that. It would literally, in my opinion, probably get rid of 90% of homelessness and joblessness in this country if we started planting this plant the way it should be and utilizing it in all the many things. We would create a new breed of entrepreneur. The money that is in these rich oil tycoons and media tycoons' hands would switch into more appropriate uses, and wealth would be spread way more around, not just this country, but the world. We would also change the environment heavily. So, talking about environment, hemp construction materials. A lot of people don't understand that you can actually build with hemp. And if you go to San Diego and you go into their train station, you can read all about how that building was built over 100 years ago using hemp. And think about San Diego. It's literally an ocean town. And the train station is very near the ocean. And ocean water is very high in salt and other minerals. And that building is still standing today. It's also known to be fire retardant and pest proof, so you're not going to need to be spraying chemicals around your home because you're not going to have termites and things like that attacking your property. And another beautiful thing about the plant is even in this form, which this is a beautiful home, as air passes through the hempcrete, it is going to be collecting or bioaccumulating toxicity. So in a home like this, and why this family did this in Asheville, North Carolina, is all that they wanted was to have their children be able to live in a healthy environment. And they had multiple chemical sensitivities. And this was the way that they were able to get around that. Now, in my family, we have a lot of chemical sensitivities as well. So in my health coaching side, I do sit with people and help them, get the chemicals out of their home and live a cleaner life. And this is, a next step for me is hopefully buying a nice plot of land in Scottsdale PV and building some hempcrete properties. Even mini homes are something that's going to be a big, big business. Yes, John?
I had one of my best friends, the oldest friends, aside from Bill, is an architect.
Let's talk.
He has been looking for a niche.
Let's talk.
Okay.
Let's talk.
His wife is also a prominent lobbyist.
Oh, wonderful. Let's talk.
Even better.
Yeah. So, another thing. We love our plastics. To be honest, I usually don't drink out of a cup of water. I ask for a straw. I've bought metal straws and I leave them in the dang cup because I'm so used to throwing out plastic straws. We know that plastic is a problem in our environment. Honestly, every fish now that is being pulled out of the ocean has microplastics in them. Our umbilical cords of the children that our women are birthing today have microplastics in the umbilical cord. You are screwed. Our clothes are made out of plastic. We wear it. The heat transfer, you're getting it in your skin. People say don't get the water bottle because it has the BPA. Your clothes have BPA in it. It's all over us. So with this just gives us a better step into a forward-thinking community. It is biodegradable. And it's not hazardous to the environment. Also, hemp-based biofuels. This is what you would take as your cannabis mass. It would turn into a tar or charcoal, and then you would get your BUT gas, your menthol, your fuel oil. This is one way of going about it. I think, to be honest, we are getting out of the old. We're becoming more and more futuristic. This is oil, petroleum. That's a thing of the past. For any individual who's in the millennial life cycle at this point, or even under 50 years old, in my opinion, to think that we need petroleum and we actually need a biofuel is pretty out of the loop of understanding that free energy is everywhere. And if we need something to be in front of us, this is really where I believe we're going. This is something that I'm working on as a project for myself. I am constantly reaching out to Elon Musk. One day Elon Musk is going to respond to me and all of his Teslas are going to have hemp supercapacitors. And I believe with very diligent daily focus on having car companies understand what this product can do for them. Every car on the road could be in a hemp supercapacitor. That eliminates war, guys. The last wars we've had is religion, and then they found petroleum. That's all we fight. War is about oil. Why would we want to kill someone else if we can grow a plant that can fix all of our problems? It's very sad that we have all these military veterans coming back with this PTSD. They have PTSD because we as a society are sending them to go kill someone that should never have been killed. We are destroying people at an alarming rate, and it's disgusting. And this plant can fix a lot of those problems, and then we just have to work on our love and understanding we're all one. But hemp supercapacitor batteries have been tested and proven out by a Dr. David Mitlin. He's up in New York, and there's a lot of individuals who are now looking at this comparative to graphene. So past lithium ion, we're looking at graphene. Graphene is extremely expensive to produce, but it does hold and store energy for an extremely long amount of time. So I actually do drive a Tesla, and right now my Tesla battery max out is 300 miles. If I drive over, I would say 75 to 85 miles, my mileage actually goes down faster, just like petroleum. But if we were to replace my lithium ion battery in my vehicle, it would go 8 times that. in distance with a hemp supercapacitor battery. And it's plant-based. Yes, John?
You could get a state of Arizona R&D grant
Mm-hmm.
to, if you could find somebody to produce that thing. And put
These
it in
are
their
produced.
Tesla.
Yes,
Okay.
these are produced. And
That's
that's,
the best way to
another
get
thing.
musks to take.
That's another thing that I'm working
Are
on.
you saying that you're utilizing graphene in the product?
No, graphene is actually not as superior. I'm saying we don't even need to create graphene because there's a creative
Okay.
process to make graphene, and there's a lot of digging and earth damaging and toxicity that goes into that. And this is, you grow it. I can share an 8-minute video with you on YouTube. I won't do it right now, but if you'd like the video, I can send it to you. It's by a gentleman out of Utah. He's also, I believe, a professor or a student there, and he talks all about it. It's like 7 minutes and something, so it's not a long, inundating, overwhelming video. And I've watched it about 10 times, and it's just miraculous. It explains the whole system and how it works and why it works, and it's like 200th of the cost difference. And it has the same amount of energy, if not more. So this is really what I think is even better than the previous slide. And then of course we forget, all of our animals, this is their food. This is a weed, this is a grass. Yes, hemp can grow anywhere from 15 to 30 feet in about 90 to 120 days as a crop cycle. So it's a very super fast growing plant. It's really great also when you're growing it for the animals, because all mammalians have what is called an endogenous cannabinoid system. It's hyphenated ECS, and we're going to talk about that in just a few moments as well. But they've started to do studies, and as you can see in some of here, it's high in much desired fats like omega-3, 6, 9, GLA, which is gamma-linolenic acid. It also has proteins, which contain every amino acid. Hemp seeds are also high in fiber, adding to an animal's digestive system, which right now we feed our livestock the worst diet ever, and we wonder why we're sick. We're feeding them corn, wheat, and soy. They are meant to eat grass. That doesn't even digest in their body. It makes them fat, and that's how we're able to suffice everyone's desires. Now they are again doing studies, like I said, in Sweden. They started giving this livestock feed, which is just hemp seed, to the animals. And they see that it's producing up to 4 liters more of milk a day from these cows. So their body is balanced into what is called homeostasis and working better and creating better for not just the animal, but for us as well. And they're doing a lot of different studies throughout the US as well, and they're longer life expectancies, just a healthier animal in general, and that's what it does for us too. So now I want to just get into a little bit about the differences of what we call hemp and marijuana. Again, this is really just high content CBD, and some of it even has a low content of CBD if you're growing it specifically for an industrial use. And then of course what we call Mary Jane, it's going to be a high THC. And again, 10, 20, 30 feet tall on hemp. The high THC content marijuana is grown to be short and bushy. The reason they do that, just so you're aware, is because they don't want the content of the THC going throughout the whole plant, which it's naturally to do. When you keep it short and trim it, and you don't let the male and the female cross-pollinate, what happens is the cannabinoid profile becomes very much higher on the flower. And the flower is what is creating all these medicinal products that you would see, like the high content THC edibles, vapes, or even just the flower itself that you would smoke. And THC is psychoactive, CBD is non-psychoactive, and it actually can reverse psychoactivity of THC. So if you get a little too intoxicated, if you're just starting a THC regimen, you can actually take some CBD to kind of bring you down a little. Also, hemp is, there's another product too that reverses it as well called Undo, which is really good. Hemp food products are fully legal in the US, so you can pretty much go anywhere right now and buy hemp seed You can buy hemp parts, you can buy hemp shakes, you can buy hemp shampoo, body wash, conditioners, lotions. I use all hemp everything. I try to practice what I preach for the most part. Also, on the federal level, high content THC is still illegal, but we have just seen state after state after state after state rolling out different laws surrounding THC content in the plant, and seeing the drop in opioid usage, the drop in multiple other types of pharmaceutical drug usage, and of course the economy just goes up, 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 up. When you are employing more people to grow crop, which is, to be honest, that's what we kind of do. We've forgotten about that. We become so technological. Like, we are supposed to be outside in the sun getting vitamin D, working, exercising, gardening, we're supposed to be creating what is sustaining us. And now that we just go and expect it to be delivered, and then we wonder why we don't feel good. We're not actually putting the work in, so there's not this equal balance anymore. So let's talk about some research. A lot of people say that there's not enough research around this plant. I would beg to differ, and I have a lot of argument behind that. One of the biggest things is that our own federal government has been, for over 50 years, financing research in Israel with Dr. Raphael Meshulam. So if you go onto the NIH PubMed.gov website, you will see thousands of articles about, if you just type in the word cannabinoid, thousands and thousands and thousands, over 30,000 different NIH approved studies around this. And Dr. Raphael Meshulam is known as the godfather of cannabis. He discovered and isolated THC. He actually discovered with his team the first endogenous cannabinoid called anandamide. So endogenous means internal. Your body naturally is creating it. Anandamide connects to what is called a CB1 receptor, which I'll get into further as well. And when that is antagonized, it helps with pain and forgetting. A lot of us don't understand why we would want to forget, but you don't want to remember every single thing you see, I promise. I promise you, you don't. And anandamide does the same thing as THC does. They both connect lock and key to the CB1 receptor. So this is our own internal THC. And ananda in Sanskrit, ananda means bliss. So this is the bliss factor of our body. So if we're not producing our own anandamide, we're not as happy as we could be. Then a few years later, he discovered the second endogenous cannabinoid, 2-arachidonyl glycerol, also known as 2-AG. People just call it 2-AG, it's a lot simpler. And 2-AG is found very prevalently in mother's breast milk. Now, I'm a mom, and I remember 8 years ago, my son just turned 8 on Valentine's Day. 8 years ago, we were in the hospital, I'm trying to get my son to latch, and they're like, oh, if he won't do it, don't worry, just put this formula in his mouth. Our society is breeding us away from each other. From literally the moment your child comes out of you, they want to take him away, inject him with poisons, and give him fake product. I didn't birth a cow. My kid does not need cow milk. My kid needs mom's milk. One of the reasons why we should never tell someone that they shouldn't breastfeed, and if they can't, we should do wet nursing. I highly believe in wet nursing, is because of this right here. 2-AG is almost an exact similar molecule structure as CBD. Your body needs it. If you're not on it, you are endocannabinoid deficient because your body is not naturally producing what it needs because it's not in our diet. If we ate hemp and our animals ate the hemp and then we slaughtered the animals, we would get cannabinoids that way. But most people aren't doing that. So what are these cannabinoids that I've been talking about? I've used this term so much today. So this is just a really short and brief description. Cannabinoids are special compounds that are found in the cannabis plant family, and there are now over 148 different cannabinoids that have been discovered on different geniuses of the plant. So I know that some of you will see, like, there's the industrial hemp that may be making for clothes, then we have the hemp that's high in CBD that we're using for supplementation, then we go to let's say we go to the dispensary. here's like a wall of product, and they've got like the OG Kush and the Jack Herrera and the purple whatever and that and this. People are like, what does this mean? I don't get it. What it means is there are different cannabinoids on that particular plant, as well as different terpenes. A terpene is just an essential oil, by the way. It's just what gives the plant its smell. And those all interact with each individual's body differently. So that's something that I think really allows us to see this plant in a bigger light. If you have something that you're looking to work with a high specific cannabinoid or high specific terpene, you can really fine tune what your individual needs. There are also nearly 400 other chemical compounds in cannabis that are common to all plants, like chlorophyll, terpenes, flavonoids, and plant waxes. Now, cannabinoid and cannabinoid-like compounds can be found in other plants. It's not just in cannabis. Echinacea, flax, common teas, black pepper, kava, hops, etc. There's also, this is very important, there are analogs in the human body, meaning that our bodies produce cannabinoids too, like I just explained, that have our cells specifically making receptor sites for cannabinoids. Because our body makes them, our body has to accept them. So our body's built for this. And all of these, this is just a fun little fact. Beta-carotene, there's a company called doTERRA, and they said if you take this beta-carotene rich essential oil, you don't have to take CBD. If you want high beta-carotene, get pepper. I prefer fresh, ground, my personal opinion, and coat your food in it. That's going to give you high beta-carotene. And it appears to behave like a cannabinoid in the body, and you can also find it in rosemary, oregano, basil, lavender, cinnamon, and it exhibits antioxidant properties. So, and it's also helping balance your ECS. So there's things that you can do commonly every day, and nothing is illegal or going to get you intoxicated. So we're trying to break that stigma. Now, this is another part of the research and education. If you want to know what your federal government knows about cannabinoid therapy, find Patent 507. It's a 21-page document, and it literally goes over multitudes of information that was collected by Dr. Julius Axelrod, who is a Nobel laureate, and him and his team. Literally, I'm going to have to read this verbatim just because that's what the law says. Cannabinoids are useful in the treatment and prophylaxis, which just means prevention, of a wide variety of oxidation-associated diseases such as ischemic, age-related, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. Cannabinoids are found to have particular application as neuroprotectants. For example, in limiting neurological damage following ischemic events, such as stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and HIV dementia. So if you know anybody that's suffering with any of these ailments that I've already listed, this is something that could greatly change their life and give them some huge relief. And non-psychoactive cannabinoids such as CBD or cannabidiol, that's the big science term for it, are particularly advantageous as they avoid toxicity-related issues. Now, toxicity just means I got high. I don't mind getting high at night. I don't drink alcohol. I would prefer to take 1 or 2 puffs off of my vape pen instead of drinking, because I know that God didn't make alcohol, humans did, and it was to poison ourselves. So, it is toxicity, just pouring it right in. So with that, take a hit or 2, you're just as intoxicated as having a beer, you know? And you get to really control it, and there's not a bad come down, and there's nothing after the fact. But if you don't want that, you don't have to have that. You just don't use Delta-9 THC containing products, or with a very, very minimal amount of it, so that there is not a high antagonist to the CB1 receptor, and then there's no high. So let's talk a little bit more about our ECS. I know that you guys can kind of see this. This is a nice little descriptive all of the different things that the ECS controls. But what's beautiful about this system is it's the largest self-regulatory system in the mammalian species, and it influences things like mood, appetite, sleep, hormone production. There's a really beautiful chart that I asked a doctor if I could use, and he told me no, so I didn't, but if I could, I would have it right there. And it's all of the different things that it covers. But I have his slide deck, and he's out of Miami, and I'm happy to share it with you guys if you want to learn more about the ECS, really dig in. It's present from 16 days of gestation. So who of you have kids in here? John, you do? Did you know that your wife was pregnant with 16 days into you inseminating her?
No.
Did you? This system is growing. Most women don't know that they're pregnant 16 days in. This system actually helps build the immune system, literally from the point of inception, and the entire central nervous system. CB1 receptors are found throughout the central nervous system, and CB1 neurotransmitters are also found in the brain. And there are more CB1 receptor sites in the brain than all other receptor sites combined. That's a lot. So if we're not constantly feeding our system, we're constantly having a breakdown. Also, our CB2 receptors, they regulate and maintain our immune system, and we're gonna find them all over: lungs, kidneys, fat cells, liver, which controls our metabolism. If you start taking CBD, I promise you're gonna be healthier and your gut's gonna start shrinking. I promise. I promise, promise, promise. Glands, pituitary, hypothalamus, thymus, thyroid, and adrenal. A lot of people have thyroid problems, and once you take your thyroid out, you're gonna get fibromyalgia, I guarantee you, within a year or two. Guaranteed. Because your body can't produce the things that it needs anymore. And I have a lot of clients, and one in particular that I speak about a lot, in her early 20s, found out she had thyroid cancer, slit her throat, took out her thyroid and 28 lymph nodes. Within a couple of years, she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is unexplained pain. We don't know. We don't know why you're hurting. We don't know. Here's some drugs. Prescription after prescription after prescription. 10 years in the making. She's got a purse full of them. And she ends up getting really sick and losing a bunch of weight, and they didn't know what was going on, and they ended up finding out that she had taken so many drugs, it killed her pancreas, and it now no longer produces insulin, and she's type 1 diabetic in her 40s. That's what we're doing to ourselves here. So it's a big thing. Like, we can actually prevent a lot of these issues that we're creating for ourselves. So all mammalians have what is known as endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome. Why? It's not in our diet anymore, and that's what we're trying to do, educate and reintroduce this into our diet so we can all feel better, live better, be happier. I know inside of each and every one of us, all we want to do is be ultimately loved, but when you're deficient in the nutrients that you need, you can't even hope to function in joy or peace to be able to give love. Our G protein coupled receptor sites control the function of 800 human genes. That's over 4% of the entire human genomic sequence. That's huge. The vanilloid pain receptor sites, which regulate our body's temperature, are also going to be influenced by cannabinoid therapies. So there's a lot of different things that this can do for us, as you can see here. This slide is ridiculous, but every single one of these items has been studied and has an NIH accepted study behind it, showing cannabinoid therapy does have improvements in relief. Do you know anybody, can you think of anybody that you know that's sick right now? Like, name an ailment maybe that you know, a friend, family, loved one?
Yep.
So what's an ailment?
Probably STD.
An STD? Okay, so on here, there is actually some different, there is some STDs. One of them that is very, very big right now is HPV. I actually know someone personally who tested positive for HPV, and every time they went and got their STD check, it kept coming back on their thing that they have HPV. They were not taking CBD for HPV, they were taking CBD for other reasons, but after being on the CBD for, I think it was about 6 months, they no longer are positive for HPV in their blood or any other kind of STD testing.
Have you seen any better results outside of, let's say, HPV, or is it just HPV?
Well, that one has just been tested. We also know that AIDS and HIV, because it is a detoxifier of the body and it's going to put you into homeostasis, I'm sure in the future we're going to see even more STD testing that proves out that cannabinoid therapies are helping reverse those issues. What about for you, John? What's an ailment of a friend or a family you know?
My wife has got serious balance problems caused by inner ear. She has crystals in her inner ear. She calls them rocks. I call them rocks. They move. And when they move, she basically can't balance herself.
Interesting. Is there a medical term for that? Do you remember? Because these are all medical
She
terms.
uses a chiropractor to basically
I would say to her, not only consume it orally, I would say put a drop or two in the ear canal itself, like you would an eardrop, with a cotton ball to sleep. So it's not bothering her all day. It's in her ear at night. It's just a drip of oil and, put it in there, and I bet you it would help completely dissolve and do that. Just an idea. Either one of you want to?
That'd be a good sales job on her, because her family has a history of alcoholism.
Well, and that's the thing. Alcoholism is poison. God created the potato. God created the aloe vera plant. God did not create tequila, nor did he create vodka. We did. God created the plant. We took the plant and changed it. God didn't create...
I'll invite the two of you to Starbucks and I'll leave.
There you go. Either one of you gentlemen have an ailment that you can think of?
Arthritis.
Arthritis, that's definitely a good helper. Topical is going to be like that instant, like I was saying earlier, I don't know if you were in the room, but I had like a back cramp yesterday, and I just put my lotion on my back because I have a body butter and also like more of a balm. Put the lotion on my back, and within 10 minutes the relief was there, and then of course just supplementation. So oral supplementation will help with the inflammation that the arthritis is causing. Your body has arthritis because it has inflammation, and that's your way of your body saying, there's a problem here we need to fix. That's what pain is. There's a problem here we need to fix. How are we going to fix it? So, again,
Another question.
yeah, go for it.
Let's see. My wife has a problem with tobacco.
With her back?
Tobacco?
Tobacco. Oh.
Yeah. I really had a hold of her, and I can see the deterioration of her now because of it. And is there any...
There's a lot of studies around helping with the sensation. Also, I don't particularly have a brand that I have found that I'm in love with for inhalation, but it is the hand-to-mouth thing that's that addictive quality. You can replace the nicotine with a CBD vape pen. I'm happy to help you get one of those. You don't need a medical card, it's just CBD. It's just not something that's asked for a lot, but I'm happy. There are some very good brands here in the city that I know. I work pretty intensely. I was just at the Marijuana Industry Association event last night in NEDA. So that's something where taking the CBD orally as a supplement is going to help to break that habit and that addiction. But then having that replacement, instead of being a cigarette, being CBD, you can't overdose on CBD. What happens with cannabinoids, why you can't overdose on even THC, is once you fill your receptor, the receptor's full. So nothing more is going there. So if you have, this is the hole and you put it in, it's stuck, no other things going in. And what your body does is, cannabinoids are lipids. And so it just goes and stores in your fat cells, and you just urinate it out. And that's why you can also test positive for cannabinoids for up to 30, 64 days, is because they're hanging out in your fat cells, so when your body needs them, it calls on them and says, hey, I need a little bit more support. So there's a couple of ways you can help her. So let's talk about what you would want to know about your CBD products. As a mom, this is really important to me. Most people, they'll just drive to the corner store. I was just telling John this morning while I was setting up, it's funny, you go, I've been doing this, and really I dug in because of my kid, and I'm going to talk about him in a few minutes, but I dug in because there was somebody that was very, very precious to me in my life, and I did not want to have a fight with anybody, and I wanted to be able to defend. So once this products were introduced to me and this cannabis family was introduced to me, I researched and researched and researched. I read hundreds of articles, watched thousands of hours of videos on YouTube, and then said this one, this one, this one, this one, all said the same thing. So that must be the truth. It wasn't one, oh, what it said is cool. No, I spent time digging in. My family are police officers. And some of them are police officers in my neighborhood. And I was being threatened even at some points, like, watch what you're doing. Don't get involved in the law. Don't be giving your kids something illegal that can get you thrown in jail. I mean, so for me, going through, these are some of the key questions that I think are important for any individual who's going to start cannabinoid therapy to really research. Where is the hemp or even the marijuana grown? Where is it grown? If it's an indoor grow, I don't really try to consider it hemp, to be honest, because hemp should be grown outdoors, because how do you get a hemp plant? It needs to be at least 10 to 30 feet tall. I don't see very many buildings, plus it needs to be in the circadian rhythm of the planetary alignment of the moon, and it needs the bees, and it needs Mother Nature. But if you're looking at THC-based products that you're going to find in a dispensary, you're going to want to know, if it's grown indoors, how clean are their systems? There was a company here that had E. coli and salmonella growing in their water tubes, and their plants they were selling this product, and people are smoking E. coli, getting sick. So that's very big to me. Like herbicides, chemical fertilizers, were these used in the production of this plant? It is a bioaccumulator. Again, it absorbs everything out of the air, the earth, and the water. So growing some of these crops that we're growing today, and people are buying more and more land, if that was a cotton field before, that was sprayed with Monsanto. That's in the earth. That hemp plant is going to absorb that Roundup, or glyphosate as we know it, into that plant. And now you're going to use the plant to medicinally heal you, and you've got toxins? Doesn't make sense to me. I don't want glyphosate in my product. I want to have a clean product. Where are the certificates of analysis, and where can they be found? So the company that I currently work with, they have what is called transparency. Every single bottle, container of they even go as far as this tiny little itsy bitsy sample. This is just a sample. Has a COA code number on the back, so that you can go type this number in and see the COA yourself of what is in this. And they're going to give you a cannabinoid profile, a terpene profile, a solvent profile, a heavy metal profile, because all of these things matter to us. I also am a very, very, very concerned parent. So what I have vowed to do is every 90 days, I randomly select one of the product and I have it go unopened tested. And when people send me product, like I have a bunch of product in my car right now, people send me product, they're like, what do you think? I don't even give a drop to nobody until I take it down to my lab and I have them run the test, and then I have the test. So if you want to see some COAs for the products that are over here, they're right here. This is from a local lab. He's a father, he's a great guy, employing people and really just helping the community. And then how often does the seller test their products independently? Most people selling CBD, they never test their product. They just say it works and just take the word for it. I was in a multi-level marketing company. Their COAs were so old. They're saying that a product that's sold in December of 2018 should be a COA valid from January of 2017. I'm like, this is not even, there's no way it's the same plant. If you're servicing thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers across the world, that is not valid. So for me, that's why I started testing myself. It upset the company. I'm not with them anymore, but your safety is my problem. If I'm servicing you, that's what I think a lot of our doctors have forgotten too. They're not testing the products that they're prescribing to you.
Is there a regulatory body that authenticates COAs?
No,
So in theory, a company could just create their own.
yes, and there are companies that are doing that. And also, let's say I get a test, and then I want to transfer it onto my A6 letterhead. I don't do that because I don't care. I want you to know who's testing the product. You can go look into them. There's ISO regulatory board. That is something that is federal, the ISO. And with that, that is someone you want to find a company that is ISO approved. But if you're looking at like a state or a federal level of like, there's a mandation on testing, there isn't one right now. I believe as of yesterday, SB 4 numbers, I don't remember them off the top of my head, was just passed. So it'll take a while to initiate, but it was just passed through mandatory testing in the state of Arizona for cannabis products. Thank God, because last year it was on the ballot, or not the ballot, but on the Senate floor and the representative floor, and it didn't pass.
Has the industry started any initiatives to self-regulate?
They don't want to. You want to know the sick part? This is the sick part. I go to these meetings, and there's all these people in here growing cannabis and selling it to people who are sick, who want to help themselves. Not one of them wants to mandate testing because it's going to cost them more money to have the testing from seed to table. And they're like, well, the customer won't buy it if we raise the price. We'll lose out on money. No, you won't. If you have a COA attached to every product, I'm going to go to you first, especially if you let me know who the company you're using is. Proverty Labs is a really great lab out of California. I use C4 because why? I have a relationship that I built here. There's another lab that I had recently met the individuals, and they actually will come to your house and pick up your product and test it for you. So you don't even have to drive. Like I drive to Mesa to go drop it off. It's only in the 60 and the 101 intersection. It's not far, but if you don't want to drive, there's actually companies now who will come and service you right then and there. What are the benefits of the seller experience? So I always want to know, how did it help you and why are you trying to sell it to me? If you go to a corner store and they have 75 products on the shelf, how do they even know which product helped them and which one is working and which one is not, and what it's doing? So I always like to know, like, for anybody who's buying, I always ask them, like, what's your story? Like, how has it helped you and your family and your friends? Also, do they have testimonials? Those are really important because I can tell you all day long about me, but if I can show you, like, here's a whole list of other people, and these are real people, and like Elizabeth Cooper, if you go on my Facebook page this morning, my girl, Elizabeth, is a podcaster, and she decided she was going to try my oil. And this morning I woke up and was crying because she sent me a beautiful 3-minute testimonial about how this oil has changed her life in the last 2 months. And, you know, for me, that's really important, I think, is to really understand, like, you have that empathy and that individual personal connection once you start to see what it's doing for others. And then the price per milligram, that's really important. There's some really, 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 really high-priced products out there. It doesn't need to be that expensive. The plant grows in 90 days. And then they do the person you're working with, are they medicinally focused? Or is the product medicinally focused, or is it more mainstream? And why I say that is because, does everybody understand sugar is a neurotoxin? It is toxic to the body. Like, if you put cannabinoids, which are antagonizing the largest self-regulatory system in your body to make it healthy, and you put a neurotoxin with it, like soda, or, to be honest, heated coffee, it's acid, sugar, any of those things, you're annulling the effect of the product. So giving your kids CBD gummies isn't doing your kid as much benefit as you would think. Because even though that's the way that they want to take it in because it's sweet, that sugar is actually antagonizing other neurons in their brain and causing an imbalance at the same time that the CBD is trying to balance. So for me, I try to, just be really careful about who I'm looking at. Coca-Cola and Pepsi are getting into this industry. If I start seeing CBD soda, we're gonna start seeing a lot of death. And then they're gonna start trying to say it's the cannabis, and it's not the cannabis. It's that the soda is going into more of an effect faster because of the antagonism of the endogenous cannabinoid system. So these are my boys. This is Ashton on the left and Archer on the right. This was just this past summer in California, and this is my why. This is why I got to where I am. In December of 2011, this was my son Ashton. He was almost a year old. Happy, you can tell his eyes were looking at me in the camera, smiling. He's not even 1 year old yet. He's born on Valentine's Day. He's my little Cupid. Of course, I'm just a typical American mom doing what everybody says to do. Oh, well, if he's not breastfeeding, give him a bottle. Well, then I pumped for 4 months in the bathroom while my in-laws stayed at my house and bottle fed my baby my own breast milk. And went to the pediatrician for all of his regular shots, and at 1 year, my son got a cocktail including measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, pneumococcal, and conjugate. Boom, 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 4 shots in his thighs, sent us home. This is the next day what my son looked like, covered in calamine lotion because of the hives that he broke out in. When I called the doctor the night before, when it started, his lips were swelling, his eyes were swelling and watering, his mouth was running saliva out of it. He's crying and screaming. He's itching his body with hives all over. He has blonde hair clearly. I could see the hives in his scalp on the bottom of his feet. He was covered. Called the pediatrician. She goes, he probably just contracted the chicken pox from the vaccination. So why don't you just put him in a milk and oatmeal bath and everything will be okay. Never even wanted to see my son again until it was due for his next shots. After that, my life became a pretty big stress ball. At the time, my son was teething. 1 year old kids are teething. And this is literally what I lived with until I found CBD. Things improved. I did a lot of holistic health care in the interim. We worked with a naturopathic doctor, but I cleaned my whole house of chemicals. I literally wash all of our clothes to keep my washing machine clean of chemical with baking soda, white vinegar, and essential oils. And your clothes get clean, I promise you. They don't smell, but they don't have poisons. If you can't eat it, probably shouldn't put it on anything. We wash our dishes in a dishwasher tablet that is non-consumable and then consume it off of the plate that we're eating the food off of. Where did our brain go wrong here? If you can't eat the dishwasher tablet, why would you eat off the plate that's covered in the dishwasher tablet? So for us, erratic behaviors, vicious biting episodes, he was actually expelled from 4 preschools. CPS was called on us multiple times. They thought that we were sexually abusing our son because he was biting people to bleeding on a daily basis. This is what he did to his little brother's arm in a matter of literally 2 minutes. I went to the bathroom and my husband walked out of the room, and this arm is just a section. He had his whole hand up his arm and even on his back. One time we were at the gym, I always had his iPad with him. We don't even have to use the iPad like we had to before because I had to have him concentrate. A little boy was watching over his shoulder is what the woman who was watching them said. And he got so angry at this child for watching his iPad from behind him, he threw the iPad down and attacked him and ate his back open. This little boy's back had 5 bites, just gushing blood. And I was literally kicked out of the gym, shunned by every one of those people. I didn't know what to do. Nobody was helping me. I didn't know what the hell was going on. My in-laws and my parents, who are, in their 60s and 70s, are like, well, he's biting. Bite him back. I'm like, okay, let's bite him back. That didn't change anything. That got CPS called on me again for abuse. And I'm like, I'm not abusing my child. I'm trying to figure out how do I teach him that this is hurting others. I actually have a video of my son after that bite episode at the gym. We went to another event for an hour. And then after that, we were sitting in the car and I was just still so distraught over it. I made a video recording of my son and I asked him, Ashton, can you tell Mom why you bit so-and-so? I just really want to understand why. And he said, Mom, it feels good to me. It doesn't feel good to him too? That is literally his response. He is a zombie because it's giving him some type of physical release. And so it should feel good to you too. So I got diagnosed with bipolar. They wanted to put me on different medications because I thought I was going crazy because I didn't know how to take care of this kid. And finally, he was diagnosed with, actually his first diagnosis at 2.5 was Asperger's and Savant syndrome. My son is very intelligent, extremely intelligent. Within 60 days of his diagnosis, the DSM-5 came out, and the doctor, the behavioral pediatrician that diagnosed him, changed his diagnosis to autism spectrum disorder level 2. So he's not the worst, but he's not the best. Because now there's this huge range. By 3 years old, I was at my wit's end, and I called the doctor, and I was like, I don't know what to do. What do you think? And he said Zoloft. And I'm like, what?
Wonderful.
My kid is 3. Now, I won't lie. In my 20s, I did some cocaine. I went to some parties. I also decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. And I went through a term of depression. During that term of depression, they put me on Zoloft. I only took 3 tablets of Zoloft because when I would swallow it as directed, it made me feel like I did cocaine. So when they offered this to my son, I was freaking out. I was like, no way, how could I do that? Like, this is insane. So that's when I went on my mission, and we did all these different therapies. ABA, which is Applied Behavioral Analysis. All autistic children are usually given this type of therapy. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, blah, 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 blah. We did all the chemicals out, got all the things that they would say, gluten-free, dairy-free, meat-free, everything. Everyone in my life that was close to me hated me at this point in my life. From 3 to 5 years old, 2 years, it was literally a war zone. My kid is attacking people, so nobody wants to be our friends. All of my family thinks I'm psychotic because my in-laws and my parents are used to like popping in a microwave meal, which should be no problem. And I'm like, he can't have that, he can't have that, he can't have that, he can't have that. And since he can't have it, no one in my house is gonna have it, and he can't go out to dinner because I don't know what's in the food. And this is what your doctor tells you to do. This is what people that are dealing with autism, if you know anybody, they're going through a hard flippant time, super duper hard time. So I found a naturopath who specialized in children. Of course, it's not medically accepted by insurance, and spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars trying to help my son. And then found somebody who said, what about cannabis? And so I started reading and watching videos. And now this is what I do. I teach people. I want people to know the truth. The beginning of the presentation, just on that section, is multi-billions, trillions of dollars. And then the fact that we can bring health back to this planet and stop hurting ourselves so much just is the icing on the cake for me, in my personal opinion. If you want to look at any of my products or you have questions, feel free to get up and take a look. I don't really go into any product knowledge because there's just so much education. Some of my products have turmeric and some of them do not have turmeric. I also have a 0 THC, but it's a broad spectrum. So I don't like isolate product. God didn't send us down one molecule. He sent us down spinach and oranges, not a vitamin C capsule. So for me, I like to deal with whole plant. I understand there are people who cannot have THC due to the job regulations that they have to uphold. So we have both a topical and an oral that is got all the other cannabinoids and plant materials and terpenes and everything. It's just isolated out completely to 0 THC none. And so yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything you guys want to know.